Hello, I am very happy to introduce you to personal mind theory. Have you ever wondered what your mind is all about? Have you ever thought about your thoughts in a meta content? Have you ever reflected on your consciousness and awareness of what it means to be one's own self? Not for the selfish purposes, but for the overall learning and development in the context of personal learning and personal cognition, in the context of ongoing learning and development as we speak, as we communicate, and as we create out there in the world. When we think of all the personal history lessons that we can actually even Google or Grok these days, we can look at every single particular personal story and we can ask many questions regarding the factual identity of a certain person that is involved in the story, that is the character and the owner of the personal story. And then we can start thinking why we even want to push the boundaries of cognition in the context of philosophy of mind, learning, cognition, and consciousness as we speak, as we think, and as we create. I'm thinking here about the most immediate realities when we are talking about thinking, rationalizing, creating, and cognizing. What it means? It means that every single time when I'm thinking about, let's say, this theory, personal mind theory, I'm just trying to communicate that the ontology, the realm of ontology regarding this theory is something to do with just one agent, just one self, just one consciousness at the first glance. But not really. There's something more to it. When I talk about personal mind theory, I'm talking here about learning, development in the context of cognition. It means that I'm focusing on particular one study case of, let's say, the most important, groundbreaking and revolutionary thinker of all times that focused our perception onto the most immediate reality was Descartes, who was just saying, I think, therefore I am. So he was just trying to emphasize the fact that without the thinking process, we wouldn't be able to even reflect on who we are, what we are, and the fact that we exist. We know that this thesis was later on corrected by philosophers from the Renaissance and modern times, and I'm just going to refer to those very shortly. But I would like to stop on the faulty thesis of Descartes, who was actually later on put into scrutiny by philosophers that picked up his thesis and created a new version of our own consciousness, rebuilding a little bit that concept with more definitions, more ontology, and more reflection on consciousness in this context. But what I would like to emphasize in this particular chunk of brainstorming here now is that every single time when we would like to connect to cognition, we have to use language, we have to use some kind of system, a symbol system that we would love to use as a mode of communication in between ourselves, to be able to recognize what we want to say, why we want to say it, and what can we do in the context of meaning and sense making with particular sentence and bunch of sentences that can create some sense later on. So being able to realize that we have tools for communication, we have a cognitive system that is responsible for recognizing certain models and certain symbolic communicative tokens for meaning and sense making is crucial in here. So being able to also imagine certain objects, ideas, ideals and matters that are not objects sensu stricto, but they are just constructs of imagination and thinking process, logically put into particular schematic and falsifiable system that could be recognized as something we can learn, cognize, decode, define, and later on redefine. To be able to do all this, we need much more than this distinction between the outer and inner world, something that Descartes figured as the most groundbreaking dualism in between our own abilities of thinking in the context of reasoning and rationalizing. The embodiment is this idea that is putting mind and brain and body back into its use, and it gives this concept gives us the opportunity to think of perception and cognition in a more diverse and interdisciplinary way, taking into account our body, our brain, our sensory system that we all have into scrutiny, to be able to precisely reflect on many different factors that are there to be taken into account when we're thinking about perception, cognition, and precision in perception and cognition. For instance, when I can see clouds outside the window, I see different colors being reflected on the surface of the mist that is creating the cloud, that is representing a cloud. Whether I am, of course, equipped with particular sensory, visually prepared system in my eye to be able to spot different colors in my retina, in my eye, and whether I am able to name all these in order to communicate them properly to another person, to make any sense out of my communication. Of course, taking into account the fact that I'm not going to be a colorblind person, that I'm equipped properly to be able to recognize all the spectrum of different colors and will be able to reflect on this as broadly as possible. But of course, this example gives us an idea of how much more complex the embodied idea of mind is to the one that Descartes used to introduce in his philosophical investigations when he was talking about our own reasoning and thinking processes and awareness and consciousness of who we are, and whether we are able to speak with certainty about who we are and when we are, whether we are dreaming only about something that we are and represent, or whether we really are certain and convinced and very confident just to say that this is what it is for sure with certainty, and we can prove the fact that actually we are not only one kind of thinking processes that he was introducing. So I think Therefore I Am was later on extended into I represent, hence I can be and become, in many different versions and contexts regarding to what I am as a system, as a body, and then what we can figure it when we talk about what we can figure when we talk about meaning and sense making thinking, and perception cognition when we talk about embodiment of all thinking processes and our mind. Is this little introduction actually something that we should include into the modern AI and innovative technologies regarding learning and development, and trying to understand what our thinking processes, imagination and perception and consciousness are all about? Of course. We have to take all this into account. So many years of different kinds of thinking that we can learn today from all the books that we can browse through or listen to through different audio content, and now Grok, for instance, and Google about, is very important. So what we have, of course, these two examples that I highlighted in here in this short introduction is just a drop in a tiny ocean of many different ideas and ideals that we can take into account when trying to understand what is the real modern take on consciousness, thinking, cognition, learning and development. I would like to encourage you to get familiar with some of my content that I have already published, and I would like to also invite you to the new ones that I'm going to publish this and next year. So, is philosophy interesting enough for us to unlock all the possibilities of our own thinking process, cognition and learning, plus development? Sure it is. I would like to encourage you to study it as much as you would love to go through this, and if you'd like to pop in back and see what I would like to add about this kind of new version of thinking in the context of learning and development, I will always invite you to more reading that I would love to release very shortly. So, thank you for being in here for a little while, and I will see you shortly. If not, I will grok it. Take care. I love you all who love wisdom. Philosophia, the love of wisdom. Good night to connect.